Hi, and welcome to the Expansive podcast. My name is Erik. I'm one half of the Expansive podcast. I'm a speaker and an executive coach. And as always, I'm joined by my ever elegant co-host, soon to be neighbor, keynote speaker, future strategist, author, new book coming out very soon, Mr. John Sanei. John, how you doing, brother?
What's up? What's up? Brand new neighbor. Everybody, congratulations is in order for Erik, who has now gotten a home in Cape Town. A little bit, like Somerset West is a bit far from Sea Point, but still much closer than where you are right now. You'll be delighted with sunsets, fresh air, and good wine. Which you're already sipping on as we're doing this podcast. So congratulations to you, Erik.
I'm a Cape Townian, so I have to do these things now, you know?
Yes.
You were saying you're going to induce me into the culture. So
yeah, I'll do my best while I'm
step
still
one.
here. Yeah, step one.
So every week we release a new episode about what it means for individuals and organizations to approach the future with an expansive mind. And we would love for you to join us as we challenge the status quo, as we banter about life and expand our perception of what is possible. The past 2 weeks, we've spoken about thinking big, about expanding your goals, about the way that you approach the challenges in your life. And today we're going to continue down that same vein a little bit. We're going to be speaking about productivity. But before we get to that, obviously we always keep a close eye on what's happening in the news. John, what have you been looking at lately? What's been interesting to you?
Well, there's so much going on out there. There seems to be both sort of such tough things that are going on out there with so much sort of implosion of many structures, but there's also some really exciting things that's bubbling up as well. This latest thing with Facebook and Ray-Ban doing a partnership around the glasses and watching the world as we're going through the sort of living everyday life and filming things as they're going along. And I think a lot of people are upset about this. I don't see it like that. You know, I think that privacy has changed. I think that what we share and what we're comfortable to share has really shifted in a major way. If you think about the younger generation, they live on Snapchat, they live on TikTok. Every part of their day is being shared. So, you know, the privacy issue is changing. And I'm interested to see where this goes, because I also think the idea that we have our fingers and a phone, using those two like sort of systems to communicate with each other, is going to be really dated in the next 10 years. We'll think to ourselves, how did we ever carry around something? And then also using our fingers to type emails. What a slow and ludicrous process. So I think this glasses is interesting because it's opening us up to the metaverse. It's opening us up to sharing more. And, you know, I mean, I think it was Will Smith who said, racism hasn't changed. We've just started filming it. And I imagine how many more things, and that was actually talking about the cops and all the things that are going on there in the States, which is just such a shit show, but that's a whole other story. But I wonder how much more things will start getting recorded and how many more things we'll start becoming aware of because of these things. What are your thoughts on these things?
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm not quite sure how mainstream it'll become. Like, obviously we've had this experiment done before in Google Glass form, and it didn't pan out all that well. Probably a big part of that was the fact that their tech was just ugly. You know, people didn't want to wear that. Like, you look like an idiot if you were wearing Google Glass. Whereas like the collaboration with Ray-Ban is quite smart, because you piggybacking off a brand that is very well established in the fashion space. So they might have more of an adoption. Like, I'm not quite sure how the use case is going to play out. Like, I don't really see it yet. Like, if you look at TikTok, for example, you know, it's all about entertainment. Like, just filming things as you go through your day, like, that's not going to be entertaining to people. Like, so I'm still torn about the use case for it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think you'll have a constant streaming of your day, but I imagine that you would be able to capture more of your day, which then gives you an opportunity to edit differently. I imagine that we'll start having sort of different editing suites and things that will go directly from your glasses and put into video. And I think it's going to be a lot smarter as far as editing it. But look, I'm always an optimist and I'm always excited about these things. Absolutely, yes, I would. Yeah.
And you'd record, what would you record with it?
I have no idea. My day, I guess. Like, I don't even know, but I want to experiment with it and play around with it. Now, if I had children and there were some perverts around, yes, I'd feel uncomfortable. Or if I was a dodgy person and I was doing some dodgy things, then I would be uncomfortable with it. But I don't have any of those things. So for me, I'm like, let's try and see what happens and how it pans out. You know, I wear glasses anyway. So to
A
add
cool
that
use
sort
case
of
for
thing.
us could be if you're on stage and you are streaming what you are seeing from the stage. I guess that's one
interesting.
way of thinking about it, right? Like it's a different point of view
Yes.
that people don't necessarily get to see. So that I could see the use case there, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, look, it's all brand new, and don't forget that Google Glass was back in many years ago. And technology is always like that. It always starts off very like chunky and boring and like doesn't really work. And then everything improves and gets faster and quicker and, cheaper. And so this is what's happening here. It's evolving. But, I also think, let's not forget, phones will become ridiculous in the next few years. We'll think about phones as like, geez, we used to carry these things around with us. What a ridiculous thing. So we must also understand the evolvement of screens went from cinemas to TVs to iPads to cell phones to glasses to lenses to Neuralinks. I mean, it's the evolvement of it. And so we must embrace it because, you can't slow it down. And also, let's not forget, your Goldilocks porridge is not always the perfect temperature when you've experienced it. It's a constantly moving temperature. And look, again, as somebody who's always like optimistic and an early adopter, I'm always keen to try these things. But let's see how it pans out, and let's see how it evolves. There's another story that caught my eye, Eric. I mean, do you have anything else to say on that?
Go for yours, and I'll tell you mine.
Look, there's one thing that I don't like about the glasses. Let me just say, it's the Mark Zuckerberg factor. I don't like him, man. He's just not a cool guy, and he just keeps proving us right that he's just a liar and he's just not a cool guy. And that's the only thing that I have like an issue with. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and the guy he does a podcast called Hardcore History. Dan Carlisle.
Colin,
yeah, very cool guy. And he's like, he does do nothing with Facebook. Anything to do with Facebook, he doesn't touch it. And I was like, yeah, man, on a value system, I agree with that. I really do. But yeah, here we are. Anyway, next story. We are starting to see the growth of fake meat, or however you want to call it. And the realness of the product is improving by leaps and bounds. And we are actually getting quite healthy options that are being grown in labs or made out of plants. And I'm really excited about this. I'm an animal lover, and I understand that people need meat in life and also love the taste of meat, and that's all cool. But I don't want to hurt animals. And ultimately, it hurts me when I think about the pain that they could be feeling. So we've just seen Burger King now introducing a whole range of vegan and vegetarian patties in South Africa, which is quite a big step because, South Africa is a big meat-eating country. And we're getting more and more of like chicken that's now fake, and obviously the milk scenario has been now for quite a while. And so slowly but surely, I'm really happy that we're starting to evolve into a process where there's options for us to choose, and they become as good, and if not healthier and cheaper and less footprints on the earth. And soon enough, it'll just make more sense for us to try these out and not be freaked out about them. And one point on this. Do you remember the very first time you ate sushi, Eric?
Yeah. I mean,
I distinctly remember.
I eat vegan sushi like from the start because I don't eat fish.
Yeah. Oh, don't you? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so I remember eating sushi for the very first time. It was a long time ago. I don't know, like 1998 or something. And I remember how weird eating raw fish. Like, it was the first, like, what? Eating raw? Now sushi is normal. Like, it's everywhere. It's just the same thing, when we think about these things. Initially, you're like, what? And then eventually you're like, oh, okay, that's just part and parcel of what the story is. And so I'm very happy about that. And congratulations to Burger King for expanding into this. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows.
Yeah, it's such an interesting industry, the fake meat industry, because it's kind of weird that they're trying to recreate the meat. Like, it's like in our brains, you can't just switch to plant. You need to switch to a plant that looks like beef or looks like chicken.
Well, it's
like
memories.
There needs to be the familiarity. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. I mean, if you had a kid that never ate meat ever, there would no need to do that because there would be no point of reference. And so it's really about giving people a convenient, cheaper, and as tasty option. And if you listen to any of the interviews from Burger King, Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat, they both say they want to create actually a better product than meat. And so it's interesting space to look at.
Listen, I wanted to get into the topic for the day, but a quick thing that I saw this week that I thought was really interesting is that they were saying that the the spyware or the bossware industry is going to reach $4.5 billion in turnover by 2026, meaning that the companies who are playing in the space where they are monitoring employees at work is becoming larger and larger. 12% growth year on year is what they're expecting for it over the next few years.
Wow.
And it's insanity, dude. Like when you go look at those programs, like they monitor everything from like your keystrokes to which programs you're logged into. Some of them even take pictures of you through your webcam to show that you are working and at your desk. And then the companies say, no, like it's not about spying on you. It's about people want to feel like they're together. So like what you can actually do through this program, one program, is you can have a big board, some centralized location, and it shows who's at their computers or not. And so the company says, or the software developer says, no, it's about showing unity and togetherness. But really all it is to make sure that you are with your ass on the seat doing the work. And it's insane, dude. It's going, 4.5 billion in the next couple of years. That's what it's going to grow to. They call it bossware.
I could not imagine anything worse. I could not. Jeez. I'd rather not work there. You keep your money. I don't care.
Yeah.
Keep your money.
So I think what we're going to see a lot of in time to come is that leaders are going to have to do a ton of internal work to make sure that they don't project their insecurities onto their teams. And that leads to them not trusting themselves to lead in the digital environment. And therefore, if they don't trust themselves, they're not going to trust their people. And so they're just going to project that onto them. And they're going to find ways like tattleware, etc., to make sure that people stay productive. So it's going to be really important that leaders do a lot of internal work and also that they understand how to build trust in a digital environment.
Well, look, I mean, yes, I agree. And I think that's very much part and parcel of your work around modern teams. And I mean, you're a specialist in this. You've written a couple books on these things. But remember that the world is splitting in two in a very major way. You have the digital dictatorships, both in governmental situations as well as corporates. And then you have the blockchain democracies, both in corporations and in governments. And so if you think about a company like WordPress, they are a blockchain sort of decentralized setup. They've got a very different way of thinking about work. And then you have other organizations that have dictatorship sort of styles. And this is their tool that they're expressing. So yes, a 4.5 billion growth. Yes, those sort of companies are there. But let's not forget, there's also other companies that are growing where they're growing differently. And as an employee, if you are an employee, be very clear of what sort of company you want to work for and become very intentional about what sort of culture you want to go into. And if you are not, guess what you'll be given? This, because you're bland about your projections and bland about your intentions. And so you'll get this sort of setup. So, geez, I mean, I could think of absolutely nothing worse. But good luck to people out there in living those lives. I wish you not to have that experience.
So with that said, and talking about productivity, let's talk about productivity.
Yes.
What do you have for us?
Well, look, I mean, for me, it was really such a spark listening to Charles Duhigg's new book, Better, Faster, Smarter, or Smarter, Better, Faster, or whatever it is. And he was doing an interview around productivity and around what he's discovered. And what he has discovered
I listened to that. It was on Jordan Hobbinger's show.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly the one I listened to.
I listened to it as well. Yeah.
And what he was saying was that success sucked because all he was doing is grafting his butt off and missing all his kids' lives. And like he wanted to have success, and then he had a New York Times bestseller and a series for New York Times, and he just wasn't seeing his family, just running up an email. So then he started thinking, well, there must be more to try and figure out what it feels like to be successful and productive and have your own time. So he's written this book about it. And I thought he just shared some really smart nuances and something that I think is important to share as well. But also I was really interested in the fact that he's brought law of attraction into his work, but guising it under corporate productivity. And I thought that was quite a link because if you ever listen to any of the work from Abraham or Esther and Jerry Hicks or any of these sort of law of attraction channels or any of these sort of hippie-ish ideologies from 20, 30 years ago, all of a sudden now they're mainstream and they're corporatized, right? So here's the first thing that I really liked what he said. He said that what we need to do is we need to rehearse and visualize the day ahead. And the example he used was the Qantas pilots. They had an incredibly bad engine failure, and one of the sort of propellers or jets lost. I don't know, lost its. It wasn't connected to the wing anymore, and so it lost itself, and then it shredded the wing. And it was a really dangerous time or situation, and they were up in the air. And he said what was amazing is when you listen to the voices of the pilots speaking to each other and speaking to the ground, there's an absolute calmness, there's a clarity in their voice and tone. And when he started diving deeper into it, he started to realize that they had rehearsed that thousands of times. And I realized, wow, yes, absolutely. And then he went on to say, well, if we rehearse our day ahead and we visualize our day ahead, and he says that he takes 10 minutes a day to visualize the day ahead, you then are able to come to a place where you're like, yes, this is what I was expecting. This is how I intended to be responding. And he used Michael Phelps. And Michael Phelps has visualized winning swimming competitions so often for so long that, you know what he said? He said it was an anticlimax when he actually won it. He was like, oh, this is why I've already experienced this. It's like boring that I've won it. I mean, he's won 8 gold medals in 1 Olympics, which is like a world record. I don't think anybody else has done that. So what I love about this is a couple things. One, if you think about Joe Dispenza and quantum science and reimagining your day or imagining and intending your day, and then now you have it brought into the Qantas example and now being toyed in it with productivity and rehearsing your day ahead, I thought it was just a wonderful mix of the spiritual quantum productivity combination that we're starting to see here. And one thing that I'll share from my side is that I think the best time to visualize your day is just before you wake up, when you're in that half awake, half asleep state. That's when you're in the theta brain state. And that's really when you are creating and projecting the blueprint of your day and your life ahead. And that's a wonderful space to think about your day, think about what you're wanting to look like, think about the meetings you're having and what sort of outcomes you'd like. And I'd go even further and even go into intentional segmenting. In other words, every time you go into a meeting, be intentional about how you want that meeting to play out. Or every time you're going for dinner, like intend that I want this to be a productive dinner. I want to have incredible conversations. I want to connect. I want to impact. I want to walk away with a business deal. I want to walk away with a future business deal, whatever the case may be. And so it really just starts becoming about visualization, intention, practicing, expectation. And look, we're talking about quantum science, but now we're talking under the guise of productivity.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good things to take away from that. You know, I mean, visualization, apart from it being a lot of attraction oriented, we've also known for like many years that every elite sportsman does it, because it's also mental rehearsal. And I think that's something that you also need to take into account is that how do we ingrain new patterns of thinking and doing is that we have to actually do it. Like we have to go through the application process, but you're not going to have that many opportunities in your day to apply it. And so how can you do that? Well, you can apply it mentally. You can sit down, go through the process of visualization, meditation, and that is an application. That is you seeing that in your mind and experiencing it in your mind, and it becomes very real by doing that. The one thing that I would just further expand on with what you were saying is that you need to be very clear on what it looks like. You know, and I was actually speaking to people about this last night, is that let's say, for example, you want to be someone who's more assertive in your day. It's good to sit down and say, I want to be more assertive, like to have that intention, but it's not good enough. It's not granular enough. And that's why I think your like segmenting idea is really good, because what you really want to do is say, what does assertiveness look like?
Yes.
Which relationship do I need to be more assertive in?
Yes.
Which interaction today do I need to be more assertive in? And if you can visualize how that plays out before you even get to it, like the likelihood of you actually making a new decision in that moment goes up exponentially. And that's what it comes down to, right? Like we're visualizing this new way of doing things so that you can make a new decision in the moment instead of falling back onto your old habitual way of doing things.
I like that. Yes. Specificity, I think, is key there, you know. Okay, good. That's the first thing. Cool. And look, it's reminded me again that how important it is. And it's got me back on track again, just thinking about these things in a very different way. The second thing that I loved what he said was to move from chores to choices. And we often think that we're stuck, and we often think that we have to do X, Y, and Z, whereas everything is really a choice at the end of the day. Working for a company that's monitoring you nonstop, that's a choice. You know, you don't have to be there. There are many, many different options out there that you can create. And now, without the intentionality and without the visualization, you then do end up at a work or a job that you don't like your boss, or you don't like the environment, or you don't like the money you're earning. Now you're being tracked. Well, guess what? It's because you didn't put any intention out. And for me, my big intention has always been to work with clients that are excited to work with me. And if they're not excited to work with me, it's a tough grind, you know, and you got to keep proving yourself. And I've got a very good friend who's incredibly talented at what he does, but he gets pushed around by his clients, and it's not because he's not talented. He's just not he's not intentional enough about what sort of clients that he wants to work with, and he gets bullied by them, and it gets frustrating to him. He keeps saying that I get treated like a child, and I keep saying to him, it's because you don't go in with such clarity of who do you want to work with, how do you want them to treat you, and so you have a choice.
Does he show up like a child?
Yes, he does in some ways.
Yeah.
And you have a choice, and I think that's really the most important thing. You have a choice to hang around the people you hang around with. You have a choice the job that you have. You have a choice the clients you have. You have a choice to think bigger. You and I chatted about this yesterday of how small some people think, including ourselves, and how we can choose to think differently, expect more. And I think this chores to choice was refreshing as a reminder for me to bring about more productivity, because when you think you're stuck in the corner and you're forced to do something, your productivity level's low, and you're feeling low, you're feeling trapped. And when you shift that to, well, I do have a choice, it changes your energy around it. And I think that's really important to take on as an option when you're thinking about your life, your day, your work, your business, whatever it may be.
Listen, but it comes back to a core idea that we speak about all the time, which is just taking ownership of your life. And to realize that ownership extends into every domain of your life. And very often, because we put ourselves onto autopilot, we start forgetting that actually we have the choice in any situation, and that we have to take ownership of that. Like you can't abscond that responsibility. You can't outsource it. Ultimately, you know, and I think you've said it before, it's like it's the greatest privilege that you have, is that you get to choose. I don't know if you've ever heard them say something like, when you have to do something, instead of saying I should do it or I need to do it, you should change that to I get to do it.
Yes, I choose to do it.
Before?
Yeah. I like that. You know, I get to go for a workout. I don't have to go for a workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get to spend time with my friends. I don't have to go and spend time with if you have to. And I think that language even then explains it. If I have to, then you're stuck. You think it's a chore.
Yeah.
If I get to, I've now made a choice. And all of this is really about expressing our actions based on a freedom to choose or a trap that we're in that we have to choose.
Yeah, I like that.
Know? Yeah.
I like
so and guess what? You know, we all fall into those traps. It's not like everybody does. And I think it's about snapping yourself out of them as often as possible, so that you can realize exactly the incredible privilege of choice that we all have every moment of every day. I think it was in my last keynote that I had, it said, tomorrow is one day or day one, your incredible privilege of choice.
Like it. Third one.
I don't have a third one. I haven't been that productive, Eric. I'm done with the productivity of my notes from that. It was visualize your day. It was from chores to choices. And the ultimate thing here is to enjoy. And if you're not enjoying it, you're feeling trapped. And if you're feeling trapped, you haven't realized you have a choice. And I think it was like when I did the Ironman, and my friend Stuart said to me that the more you smile, the faster you go. And that was a choice, you know. I decided to smile more. I decided to, and it really did help my race in such an amazing way, you know.
You know, I think a good way to kind of end this then is to talk about the fact that having productivity systems and redefining how we do productivity is really important. But we've also seen that productivity in general, I think, has been redefined quite a bit over the past year and a half.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've spoken about this as well. I think, like we spoke about having moments of deep, intense focus and coming out of that and giving yourself some space to recover, right? Do you remember the language around that?
Oh, and moments of stillness.
Yes.
Wow,
So like I think what we're also seeing is that productivity is being redefined.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that we can do when it comes to productivity is to really increase your level of self-awareness. That it's not just about the grind and output and effectiveness. Like it's also about making sure that you are enabling that and empowering that
Yes.
by looking after yourself.
Yes.
And, you know, I was speaking to Danica just like 2 days ago about this as well, because she's been a beast. Hey, like, I mean, she's been doing her MBA plus like working full time plus looking after me and the 2 dogs.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to
So,
say that
no,
if you hadn't, if you
I
hadn't
need to
brought
own
that
it.
up, I would have brought that up. I would have brought that up. Danica, I'm with you. I'm backing you, Danica.
So she's like,
Your
she's
husband's
like
drinking
nonstop.
wine. Apparently he's working, but he's drinking wine on
Yeah.
this podcast right now.
Of wine and chatting to a friend. Like, that's my work. Yesterday at the ocean, drinking wine and chatting to a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but she was just saying, like, you know, she was going into a meeting. She's like, I'm feeling so low. And I was like, well, yes, of course you are. Like, you need to understand what that is and not judge yourself too harshly for it. And know that, sure, you'll come out of that again. Like, you go into your meeting, you'll be pumped and ready for it. But then also have the kindness and treat yourself gently enough that when you come out of that, you don't have to be productive 24/7. And then give yourself the space just to recover and be ready for the next bout, you know?
Be sure that Cape Town will change that for you, my friend. Cape Town's energy is much more chilled, you know. It's not as a go as Joburg. But yeah,
I'm worried about that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a different level of productivity, you know. Your golf game will get better, thank God, because it's shocking. And but
The question is golf going to make me more money? That's the only question that we need to answer.
Well, not at this stage, because you're super cuck. So you have to get a lot better. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, look, of course it'll change.
That's the one
You'll
thing that'll count.
definitely beat me in golf, Eric. That is
I won't beat anyone else.
Yes, that's fine. Look, why don't you? Do you want me to play with you just to give you a bit of a boost so that you
I'd
can
love that.
beat?
I'd love
Okay,
that.
okay,
Yeah.
let's go. I think your clubs are taller than me, so I don't know what we're going to do there. Anyway, it's been a great session. These are all the lessons that Erik and I sort of ingest throughout the week, and then I think it's a really important thing. This was another part of the podcast actually, was talking about how in teaching you solidify the learnings, and I think this podcast really does that for both Erik and I. And thank you so much for joining us as we go through our own process of learning, our own process of evolving and expanding, and always wonderful to have everybody along with us on this ride. Thank you for everybody sharing this podcast, sending us messages, and just really making it such a joy for us to be impacting so many different people all around the world. We really appreciate your support. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do share it with somebody in your organization or with a friend. And please look after yourself. It is not an easy time out there. And once you've finished looking after yourself, please do go and look after somebody else.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Ciao.